Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our Wednesday morning, 9:30 a.m. Tanya Shir. We are actually holding at the beginning of Perek Yud Beis of Tanya. If you have the lessons in Tanya in front of you, we're on page 174 or 172 in the older print, Perek Yud Beis by the word V'habeinene. So, context, where are we holding? The Alter Rebbe has explained to us till here that every Yid, L'chol Ish Yisrael, every Yid has two neshamas, what we call the Nefesh Elikis, what we call the Nefesh Abamis. The Alter Rebbe has explained to us what each of them is. The Alter Rebbe explained to us what each of them has. The Alter Rebbe has explained to us what they want. The Alter Rebbe has explained to us the nature of the battle between the two. And Alter Rebbe has also explained to us the nature of the outcome of this battle. There is, typically when it comes to battles, we understand that there is a winner and there is a loser, and depending on which way the battle goes, that will determine what happens. So, if the Nefesh Elikis wins this particular battle, then we call the Yid a Tzaddik. If the victory is complete, we call him a Tzaddik Gomer. If the victory is incomplete, we call him a Tzaddik She'eino Gomer. And so, Rahman Litzlan, the other way, if the Nefesh HaBahamis wins, if the Yetzer Hara wins, then we call the Yid a Rosha. If the Yetzer Hara wins completely, we call him a Rosha V'Ralo, a Rosha Gomer, not a Rosha She'eino Gomer. Everything has been learned. Okay. Until here, the structure of it is actually, the ideas are very profound, of course, but the structure of it is actually relatively forward and straightforward and simple. And we've come really to a clarity. There's a battle. There's actually two real sides. This is not something that we imagine, right? Jews are not schizophrenic because just it's good for parnasa. We really are. We really have this internal battle that rages, that's being waged inside of us. There is this battle. There is a winner. There is a loser. Again, to one degree or another, and everything is clear till here. Structurally. Here comes Perek Yud Beis, as far as the structure of Tanya. Here comes really, we could say, the first climax, if you will, of really what the Alter Rebbe wants to really get to and talk about with this whole Sefer HaTanya, called by the Alter Rebbe himself as Sefer Shel Beinene, dedicated to the Beinene. Here the Alter Rebbe will discuss that there is another scenario. There's another possible outcome, which is difficult to understand. What could be the possible outcome? Right? You have a war, you have a winner, and you have a loser. The Alter Rebbe says, no, actually there's another option. The other option, of course, is the Beinene, and the Beinene is going to move from what seems like this obscure idea, where there's a battle where one of the options of the battle is not a winner or a loser, and it's going to move from this obscure idea. The Alter Rebbe will highlight it and develop it and focus on it to the extent that this entire section of Tanya, the first of the 5 sections of Tanya, is called Sefer Shel Beinene. It's to the Beinene that the Alter Rebbe directs the entire Sefer Tanya to celebrate the Beinene, to elevate the Beinene, to encourage, to reassure, to promote the Beinene, and even, as I heard from my Mashpiyim and from my Chassidus teachers, eventually the Alter Rebbe will learn, Chassidus will teach that in a sense, the Beinene is even higher than the Tzaddik, at least in the context of studying Tanya. Here's my introductory story before we begin. I'm sure many of you have heard this story before, probably many times, as is the custom with great Hasidic stories, but it's worthwhile to repeat because it carries a profound message. So the legend has it that there's a young man who's in Yechidus by the Rebbe, and he is complaining to the Rebbe that life is difficult. Right? What else are you going to do in the Rebbe's room? Tell him that everything is fantastic, The Rebbe would often complain, people don't do that, The Rebbe would often complain that he has people who come to him when they have challenges, but not when things are good. So most of the time when things were good, people didn't feel the need to to share. Unfortunately, didn't feel the need to share this with the Rebbe. But definitely, when things were difficult and when things were painful, this became the address. Parenthetically, by the way, and I just want to, this is completely parenthetical. Open a mental bracket. I was zoiche to sit at a Farbrengen once with Rabbi Leibel Groner, the Homalichtige Gan Eden, and he shared such a profound, in his inimitable way, he kind of shared it sort of nonchalantly, but he shared what I thought was such a profound idea that the Rebbe once taught him, that it comes to my mind almost every time I think about this. To cut a long story short, he said that Leibel Groner was in charge of managing the Rebbe's Yechidus appointments, right? For as long as they lasted. I think they lasted till the end of the 70s, right? 78, around the time of the Rebbe's heart attack. The Rebbe would have, 3 times a week, usually, just seeing people privately till, God knows what time. So Rabbi Leibel Groner was in charge of managing this. He would make the appointments, he would set them, and he was also in charge of seeing to it that people, wouldn't take too long in the Rebbe's Yechidus room. And when necessary, when appropriate, he would actually interrupt the Yechidus. And the Rebbe, the Rebbe charged him with this shlichus. If and when he deemed necessary, he would sometimes interrupt the Yechidus and say to the person, look, I'm sorry to do this to you, but you got this, this. We have to move this along. And sometimes the Rebbe would get upset with him for interrupting. Sometimes they would get upset with him for not interrupting. It was always a judgment call, and one that he, toward the end of his life, he spoke transparently about his own struggles with. He said one time there was a couple in Yechidus, and they went in, and they were taking a long time, and he was getting anxious about this, it was taking too long. Somehow he becomes aware, either he's listening, either the door is open a crack or not, either he becomes aware that they're standing in the Rebbe's room and they're just repeating themselves. I have to tell you that the story has burrowed its way into my heart. He said that the couple are just repeating themselves. They said something once, they asked the Rebbe the question, they shared their concern. The Rebbe answered them, gave them advice, gave them a bracha, reassured them, whatever it was. And then, you know how it is with Jews? You ever had this experience? They ask you a question, you give them an answer, they just ask you the question again. They're just repeating themselves. Once, twice, 3 times. So the label said, I plotzed, I couldn't handle this. She said, I walked in and I said to the couple, look, I'm so sorry. I really, with all the empathy in the world, like, yalla, I got God knows how many people. Anyways, he escorted them out. And the rest of the evening continued. At the end of the night, when the Rebbe was done with all the appointments, the Rebbe would have usually a quick just meeting with Leibel, just, if anything had to be dealt with practically, whatever it was. And on this particular occasion, Rabbi Groner said the Rebbe told him that he did the wrong thing by asking the couple to leave. Now, I need you to open your hearts for a minute. I need you to hear the reason why. The Rebbe said, I know why you did it, or at least I assume I know why you did it, because you heard them repeating themselves. They were just repeating themselves again and again, and you thought to yourself, what's the point, right? So the Rebbe said like this. I'll say it in Yiddish and I'll translate. He said, when the Yidden kommen da rein, when Jews come in to see me, the Rebbe said, kommen sie mit Steiner auf den Herzen. They come with their challenges in life. In Yiddish, the expression for challenges, for experiencing difficulties, is the person is carrying rocks and boulders on their heart. The Rebbe said, when they share their concerns with me, when sie sagen das, fällt bei sie herab ein Stein von Herzen. As they share it, one of the rocks, one of the boulders fall off their heart. The Rebbe said, when they repeat the thing again, every time that they repeat it, jeden Mal, was sie sagen, fällt bei sie herab noch ein Stein von Herzen. Even though they're repeating the same thing, but every time they say it, they feel lighter because more rocks and boulders are falling off their heart. So, in essence, the Rebbe said, and you interrupted the process, and you shouldn't have done that. In essence, the way that's what the Rebbe said. when I interpret it in my own head, the Rebbe is giving him a crash course 101, EQ 101, a crash course on emotional intelligence. You're hearing a person repeat themselves again and again, right? Saying the same thing over and over again. You think to yourself, what's the point? You already said, you're taking up the Rebbe's time. The Rebbe said, but you're coming at it from the wrong perspective. What's the person trying to tell? The person's trying to tell you, I'm in pain. I'm hurting, I'm suffering, my life is difficult, it's tut vei. So you're telling me, so you said it once and you gave an answer, When you talk to a person, when we talk to people who are in pain, we have to understand, we have to bear in mind that they're talking about it and repeating it. Right now, it might not make the problem go away, but it might empower them to feel stronger within themselves to be able to then go ahead and deal with it. The Rebbe said, just remember, right? We're not dealing here with ideas. We're dealing here with people. Some of us are very good with ideas, but not good with people. Some of us are very good with people, not with ideas. When somebody tells you that it's misleading, because sometimes when people suffer in life, they'll come to you and they'll say, why? Right? Why am I suffering this way? So we hear the word why triggers us. We hear why, we think, why is intellect, why is reasons, why is ideas, and we have, especially if we studied a lot of Chassidus, we have shopping lists of explanations. The explanations, not just they don't help, but they're actually often very painful. I'm not asking you, most of the time when people say why, they're looking for a reason. They're trying to share their heart with you. So the way I understand, the Rebbe was telling Label, this is not about just the particular issue that they're talking about. Yes, the particular issue, they've said it and I've already answered them, but it's themselves, they're bearing their souls here, they're bearing their heart. Like, this takes a couple of times, it takes repeating itself. Right? Chassidim said, why did the Alter Rebbe repeat so many times the question, Loma Yordan Neshama? Many Mamorim, the Alter Rebbe asks, why did Neshama come down Lamato? Why did the Neshama? It started off so high, it comes down so low. And the Alter Rebbe gives all sorts of explanations. It's Yerida L'Tzairach Aliyah, it's for the sake of refining the Nefesh Habamis, it's for the sake of Nisyonis, of Nitzotzes, and then the next moment, the Alter Rebbe asks the question again, why did the Neshama come down? So Chassidim said, what is this, a joke? This is a game? You ask me a question, you give me an answer, then you ask me the same question again? They said, no, it's not a joke, it's not a game. It's an emotional question. It's an expression of pain. You can't answer an emotional question with an intellectual answer. It's like trying to feed a hungry person a recipe book. It's not the ton. I'm not looking for a recipe. I'm trying to tell you I'm hungry. So to me, give me svaras. So anyways, the Rebbe gave Rabbi Groner a crash course on emotional intelligence and what happens when people repeat themselves. It's very important to remember, because sometimes in life, to be honest, I experience this all the time. People will ask a question, they get an answer, and then they repeat the question. If I don't catch myself, it gets me frustrated. What do you mean? You already asked me the question, and I already answered, and I'm like, oh wait, 1 second. Somebody's trying to share their heart. Like, have a heart. Take off your I need to solve the world's problems hat. Take off the God complex that we sometimes all have, trying to fix everybody. Stop trying to fix everybody. Listen. Just absorb someone else's pain. It's incredibly empowering. Most of the time, that's much more impactful and much more helpful than all of our brilliant ideas that we think we can solve the world's problems. Anyways, and on that pretty note, close the bracket. Okay, we go back to Tanya. So I wanted to tell you an introductory story to Perek Yud. So a young man, legend has it, comes to the Rebbe, and he's complaining to the Rebbe in Yechidus that he has a hard life. That's how I distracted myself, because he's complaining to the Rebbe that he has it difficult. And the Rebbe's talking to him. The Rebbe's, encouraging him and benching him, but the guy is insisting. But Rebbe, why does it have to be so hard? So the Rebbe says to him, what do you do in life? What do you do? So he tells the Rebbe he's an artist and he's actually in art school. Again, this is the way I heard the story. He's in art school. So Rebbe says, how does it work? Well, what is it? He tells him, well, how does it work? It's art. You sit and you paint and you... So Rebbe says to him, so what's the she'ifa? what's the aspiration here? What's the aspiration? He says the aspiration is you become a tremendous artist. No, and then? He says, and then you paint these pieces, What type of pieces, the Rebbe says? Well, you stand in front of a waterfall or a mountain or a valley or, in front of a shul or, whatever, and you paint it. You could sell it for astronomical amounts of money, the pieces of art. They're incredibly beautiful. And, so the Rebbe says to him, I have an idea. The Rebbe says, and how long does it take? He said, to paint a painting, sometimes could take weeks, sometimes could take months, sometimes years. So the Rebbe says, I have an idea for you. Oh, one second. So I want one more part. The Rebbe says, so what determines the value of the painting? Right? What determines? So he said in his line of work, the type of art that he was studying, they were studying the type of art that can capture the reality of what they're painting as accurately as possible. To paint the taka correctly. Nu fragt the Rebbe, do you ever get it 100%? He says, there's no such thing as 100%. Even the greatest artists in the world cannot capture reality 100%, as much as possible, yeah. So he says, I have an idea for you. There's a modern day invention called a camera. It takes 2 seconds, or 1 second, you stand there, you push a button, right? This was even before the days of iPhones. You push a button, you develop the negative, and you have a print. And the Rebbe says it's quick and it's accurate and it's 100%. He tells the Rebbe this is called postcards, and they sell 2 of them for $1. It's worthless. Says the Rebbe, why is it worthless? Why is it worthless? It's perfect. He says to the Rebbe, it's perfect because it has no soul. It has no life. The photograph is accurate but dead. The struggle of the artist is not just to capture the reality. It's to capture the life. It's to capture the neshama of the reality. That takes time and effort. So the Rebbe told him, again, this is the way the story is told. So the Rebbe told him that the Eibishter also has photographs and paintings. Photographs, postcards, the Rebbe said, is malachim. Malachim don't struggle. Malachim are created perfect. They endure, they exist perfect. As a rule, they never sin. They do exactly what they're supposed to, when they're supposed to, because they're told that there's no struggle. And the Rebbe said, and they're 2 for $1, so to speak. Malachim, 2 for $1. The Eibishter there's no deep relationship, there's no deep enjoyment from these malachim. The Rebbe said, you're asking me why your life is difficult? Because you're not a malach, you're a neshama. A neshama was put into this world to struggle to capture the neshama of a relationship between the Eibishter and a Yid. For that, you can't just stand there and push and click a button and everything will be perfect. This takes time and effort and development and is in constant motion. So the Rebbe says, it's not that you should view it that the struggle is there to hurt you, chas v'shalom. But like an artist struggling to capture a beautiful sunset and put it on canvas, it's the process within the artist as they put the painting on canvas that in the end becomes the neshama of the painting itself. So when a Yid works and grows, you see, in their avodas Hashem, the growth, the process that's involved captures the neshama of the Yid's relationship with the Eibishter. By a malach, there's no growth. It's completely stagnant. Okay, that's my introduction. Very good base. V'habeinani, says the Alter Rebbe, there is a third option, that sometimes the tzaddik wins, sometimes the nefesh elokis wins, and he's a tzaddik. Sometimes the nefesh abamis wins, in which case he's a rasha. And then there's the guy or the gal who's stuck completely in the middle. The habeinani. What's the story with the beinani? On the one hand, the beinani is shelo olam ein arak gover kol kach lichbosh esayir ktana. On the one hand, the Nefesh Abamis never truly gets the upper hand, never conquers the little city. The little city is the term used for the person. Lislabish b'guf lachtiyah. The Nefesh Abamis, the Yetzer Hara, never gets the upper hand to get the Jew to actually sin. The Hainu, this means that in the only three things that any of us will ever control in our lives, ever. Shlosh levushim Nefesh Abamis. Shem machshava dibur u'maaseh, the three garments. Machshava dibur u'maaseh, thought, speech, and action. The thought, speech, and action of the Nefesh Abamis shemitzad klipa ein goyvrim b'al Nefesh Elokis l'tlabish b'guf. They do not have the power to take control in the body. Not b'moyach, not in the person's brain. Not b'peh, not in the person's mouth. Not b'shar amach ivarim, and not in the person's actions. Lahachtiyam ulatamam chas v'shalom. A Beinani, the Nefesh Abamis, does not have the power to control the Beinani's thoughts, the Beinani's speech, or the Beinani's action. He knows what he has to do, and he does it. He knows what he's not supposed to do, and he doesn't do it. He knows what he's supposed to say and not say. He knows what he's supposed to think and not think. And when it comes practically, when it comes lepoil, they have control. When it comes to thought, speech, and action, it's the three garments of the Nefesh Elokis. The Jew knows exactly what they're supposed to do in thought, speech, and action. Okay, I'm going to come back to this. I'm going to come back to this either this week or next week. The Alter Rebbe says the definition of a Beinani is one who's never sinned before in his life and never will sin again. And the term Rasha has not been applied to him even one moment his entire life. This needs to be understood. There's a lot in the commentaries of Tanya over this. I'm skipping it for now. We'll come back to it in Mirz Hashem. Because I want to finish the point. On the one hand, the Beinani is a realm in which the Nefesh Abamis the Yetzer Hara never gets the upper hand in thought, speech, and action. On the other hand, Mehus v'atzmus Nefesh Elokis, when it comes to the definition, when it comes to the soul, when it comes to the intellect and the emotion of the Nefesh Elokis, Shein Esra b'chinoseha, the 10 powers, the intellect, the emotion, when it comes to the character of the person, Loy lohen levadon Alter Rebbe says it nicely. Loy lohen levadon amlucha v'amshola b'yirktano. Now, when it comes to what's beneath the surface of the human being, beneath the surface, the Nefesh Abamis, the Nefesh Elokis is not the winner. Beneath the surface, the battle remains. And in fact, in many cases, the Nefesh Abamis may have the upper hand. So the Beinani, unlike a tzaddik who has actually conquered the Nefesh Abamis and doesn't have the temptations that a Rasha has, and doesn't have the intellectual leanings that a Rasha has, the tzaddik has actually changed himself on the inside. The Beinani has not had that success. He hasn't changed himself on the inside. On the inside, he remains with the same temptations as he was before. But what? But lepoil, practically, in the addiction world, we call this white knuckling. You know what white knuckling is? When a person clenches their fist really tight for a long time, the edge of their knuckles become white because they're stretching the skin over the knuckles, that it goes from the regular flesh color to white because of the pressure, because of the tension of how tightly they're pulling it. In the addiction world, the expression white knuckling means when a person, their temptation, their urges, their tendencies hasn't gone away, but they've learned to one degree or another to control themselves, to hold themselves back. So when a physical expression of this is a person who will clench their fists, right? As if to say, I would like to pulverize somebody, but I'm controlling myself. This is the Beinani. So the first point here is that the Beinani is stuck in this, let's call it, in this sort of stalemate. It's not an accurate way of It's more like the Beinoni is stuck in this duality. That's a much better way of saying it. The Beinoni is stuck in this duality, where on the one hand, they have the control, they have the self-control to make sure they don't do, say, or think as they're not supposed to. But on the other hand, the urges are still there, the temptations, they haven't managed to purge themselves of this. They're not necessarily refined on the inside. They're still struggling with the same stuff, the same garbage that they were struggling with before. They've just not managed to control it. So the first part to this is sort of really like a tremendous rachmanis on this Beinoni. Like, Nebuch, poor guy, right? I mean, stuck in between. Stuck between a rock and a hard place. Cannot allow themselves to have the self-control not to allow themselves to descend into practical averos, but yet doesn't have the self-control or the kalim or even the neshama to conquer it. I want to explain a little bit more. There are certain things that are very difficult for us, certain things we know we have to do in life, right? Whatever it is that a person has to do. Certain things are very difficult for us, but once we do it with time, it becomes easier, right? I work with young men who sometimes have what the world likes to call commitment issues, right? It's tremendously difficult for them to commit to get married, to commit to a job, to commit to have children. Very difficult. Commitment issues. I'm not a psychologist. For whatever reason, they struggle with this. But there's a profound distinction. Sometimes for certain people, initially the commitment is difficult. But once they commit, once they jump, I'm doing this, right? Boom, jump in. From there, generally, basically, it gets easier, right? They're not waking up 10 years after they're married, looking at their wives or their husbands going, oh man, one spouse for the rest of my life? Really? Do I have to do this forever? Hopefully, right? It gets easier with time. Because at the beginning it's difficult. They have to change their nature. They have to break themselves, right? Some of us, present company excluded, some of us struggle with being on time for things, schedule. It's an avoider, but with time, going to sleep on time, waking up on time. But with time, it becomes easier. Baruch Hashem, as it becomes easier, the temptation, we develop good habits, right? We break bad habits. It becomes easier, Pashut. Sometimes it can get so easy that it's barely even a struggle, please God. But then there are certain things, the Eibishter made it this way, certain things, certain bad internal battles we have, it never gets easier. It never gets easier. These are things we battle with and we struggle with every single day. And it drives us, it's a source of tremendous pain because we get frustrated, like Rabbanu Shlomo. How many times do we have to struggle with the same thing? I'll tell you, there was an individual, Zayin Gesund, he's actually a tremendous Baal Tzedakah, tremendous. And he shared with me in confidence that it happens to be, and he's a very generous person, and he has, Baruch Hashem, tremendous means. And he told me, every time he gives tzedakah, it's an internal avodah. And I was shocked when he said it to me. I'm like, you're generous, you're kind. It's not just, again, it's not, not telling him conceptually. Practically, he's giving, he's helping people. It's an avodah for him. Every time he feels like he's giving a pound of his flesh, right? For some people, not to talk Lashon Hara. It's a challenge. It's a challenge not to listen to Lashon Hara. You did it yesterday. You over. Still difficult, right? A wise man once said, "I don't repeat Lashon Hara, so listen carefully the first time." For some people, it's difficult. The Alter Rebbe is saying the Beinoni is stuck. The Beinoni is stuck. He can control, he can prevent the enemy from breaching the wall, but he can't conquer the enemy. Later in time, Alter Rebbe will say not just he can't conquer it, but actually the enemy gets stronger with time. So not only the Beinoni is stuck in this perpetual avoida, the Beinoni is the avoida becomes more. Could be that the avoida becomes more and more difficult with time. So the initial idea, the initial approach, this is a nebach. What are you going to do? What are the options? What can we do? We can't tell the Beinoni it's okay, go do whatever you want, right? Obviously, Hashem said no. No is no. But he doesn't have the neshama, he doesn't have the skills, he doesn't have the tools to get rid of the temptation. So what are you supposed to do? Battle with this our whole life? Until Alter Rebbe wrote to Tanya, the answer was, you're stuck. You're stuck, what are you going to do? That's it. Deal with it. Right? Life ain't fair. The Alter Rebbe wants to listen to me very carefully. Alter Rebbe wants to make the argument that we need a paradigm shift, a complete open brain and open heart surgery from the Alter Rebbe himself, a paradigm shift in this whole thing. The way we perceive victory and the way we perceive defeat, we have to throw the whole book in the garbage and rewrite the whole thing. Alter Rebbe says, you think that the day your Yetzer Hara, your Nefesh Abamis, the day you're immune to temptation, that's your definition of victory? You think that the day you wake up in the morning and you say to yourself, I want to daven, I want to learn, I want to give tzedakah, I don't want to talk Lashon Hara, all I want to do is sit and learn all day. Hashem wants me to work, I want to work, I want. And you don't struggle at all. The Alter Rebbe says, you think that's the definition of success? You're wrong. There's nothing successful about that. There are certain neshamas that's their shlichus. But for the vast majority of us, that's not it. In other words, as human beings, our brains are hardwired to make things easier for ourselves. Give me an easier option. Give me an easier path. Right? Make it. We don't want to struggle and wrestle with stuff. Wait a second, says the Alter Rebbe. What if there's more in the wrestling and the struggle? What if there's more value there? What if there's more divinity in there than the way you perceive the success? There's a great story about the Rebbe repeated the story many times about a young man who comes to the Tzemach Tzedek. And he tells the Tzemach Tzedek that he has a problem. What's the problem? He tells the Tzemach Tzedek, my problem is I don't want to learn Torah. I don't enjoy it. I don't like it. I don't want to learn. I have no cheshek. I have no enjoyment in it. And the Tzemach Tzedek says, you call that a problem? You don't want to learn? I'm the one who has the problem. You don't have a problem. I'm the one who has. What's your problem? Tzemach Tzedek says, I do want to learn. End of story. What does it mean? Okay, so it starts, right? What does it mean? It means that Tzemach Tzedek was saying that he wants to learn, meaning that this is his nature. His nature is that he wants to learn, right? So he's not overcoming anything. There's no challenge here. There's no struggle. The Rebbe said once fascinatingly, when a Jew doesn't want to learn and they force themselves to learn, so this battle of forcing oneself brings out deeper koiches, deeper powers. And the deeper powers actually takes the Torah, means you'll understand the Torah that you're learning on a deeper level. But I think we missed the point. Maybe what the Tzemach Tzedek was saying is, you got the wrong idea. You're focused. What you think is the prize is the wrong place, Bechlal, right? You're thinking the end game here is to be a Torah scholar, right? Now the problem is, how do I get there? Because I don't want to. But what if the end game is not to be the Torah scholar? What if the end game is the battle? What if the end game is to learn to battle yourself internally. What if that is the end game? Then this is not a problem. This is exactly what it is. Now you'll ask, wait a second. But how? The issue here is we're human beings, right? We're limited. We have a certain amount of intellectual and emotional and spiritual bandwidth. We have gas tanks. When the gas tank runs out, we need more gas. So where does the Beini get this energy, this constant flow of energy to continuously engage in this battle? If there's no relief, if there's no victory, then where's the relief come from? See, Alter Rebbe will say that it's not true to say the Beini has no relief. There are times. For example, during davening, when the Beini when the Beini does experience temporary victory, where even within his soul, the Beini is the Nefesh Elokis overpowers the Nefesh Habamis, and the Nefesh Habamis is ineffective. And he doesn't, at times during davening, he doesn't have to struggle with the temptations of the Nefesh Habamis. He has the relief. But the relief is temporary. The moshel is very interesting. The moshel the Alter Rebbe will give is that during davening, when a Beini davens, it's like his Nefesh Habamis is asleep. When a person is asleep, they're largely ineffective. The only problem is that as soon as they get triggered, they wake up and they're just as powerful as they were before, if not even more. So the Beini knows that during davening his Nefesh Habamis is asleep, but after davening, his Nefesh Habamis will roar like the beast that it is. In that, he never gets relief. I want to add one more point to this. As human beings, we also crave security because we have something called fear, and the fear gets triggered when we don't have security, when we don't have safety and security. We get very concerned. Just like Bagashmias, a person needs a house. And at night, they need to be able to close the door and lock it, and to feel safe inside their own house. Otherwise, a human being can't live. A human being that doesn't have safety cannot function. In a ruchniistic sense, it's the same thing. We also desperately crave security. We also desperately crave protection. Like, what can I do to protect every single day? I'm battling the same thing again and again and again. I crave to feel safe. Now the Alter Rebbe comes to us and says, listen, this battle is never going to end. Right? So how do I feel safe in it? So there's 2 points here. So again, on the one hand, you're not supposed to. In other words, you're not supposed to actually vanquish the enemy. You're not supposed to, do away with it. But there's also a deeper word here as well. Why does a person feel safe by closing their doors, by locking them at night and making sure nobody comes in? Why does a person feel safe that way? Because if people come in, they could be stronger than me. But if you were the strongest, most powerful, most invincible force in the world, truly, would you need a locked door to protect you? I'm 1,000 times stronger than the locked door. Not Bagashmias. Bagashmias we're not. Bagashmias, the locked door is stronger than us, which is why the locked door protects us. But what if we were more invincible and stronger and more powerful than the locked door? Then we wouldn't need the lock. We would leave our doors wide open. We have nothing to fear. The deeper message here is not just that the kavana elyoina is that the Beini should struggle. Of course that's the word, but this is a much deeper message. The Alter Rebbe is saying, when you as a Jew crave the security, when you say, I don't want to deal with this battle it because it scares me, right? The Alter Rebbe says, then you're not processing the true depth of your own invincibility as a Yid. You're much more powerful than that. You don't need to do away with the Nefesh Habamis to do away with the enemy, right? A nation, a country wants to protect, Alter Rebbe gives the mashal of a war. A country wants to protect itself, and an enemy comes, you have to destroy the enemy, because it's possible that the enemy will destroy you if you don't. Yes, says the Rebbe. Says Alter Rebbe, but that's only in the mashal. In the nimshal, it's not that way. In the nimshal, in the end, there's anyways nothing to fear, because in the end, the nefesh habamis is not really evil, and the temptations are all for the sake of the Yid. It's anyways all for our benefit. So, in other words, the reason why it is this, there's two reasons why it is this way. First, from the Eibishter's perspective, like we said before, the Eibishter has no nachas ruach from Alochim because they're just pictures, not paintings. The Eibishter has nachas ruach from the struggle. But even as far as the Yid is concerned, the message to the Yid, when you're truly invincible, when the Yid realizes that there's truly nothing can really break them, now we're not afraid of the struggle anymore. We're afraid of the struggle because we're afraid we're going to lose. I'm going to finish with a story. Because this idea here that the Beinoni is the man of the Jew of the struggle, this idea is very relevant to the Alter Rebbe's perspective b'chlal. It's not just it happens to be that the Alter Rebbe wrote Sefer Shel Beinim. It's very critical b'chlal to the perspective of the Alter Rebbe b'chlal in Avodas Hashem. I want to explain a little bit what I'm saying, and you're all familiar with the idea, and we spoke about it when we started the Shiurim in Tanya. But just highlight the point quickly. The story goes that there was a Yid who came, a Chabad Chassid who came to the Alter Rebbe in Yechidus, and he complained to the Alter Rebbe. He said, Rebbe, I have a Tanya, I have a complaint. What is it? He said he davens in shul next to another chassid who was not a Labab, was not a Chabad chassid. He was a chassid of a Polish Rebbe who lived, this particular Rebbe lived in a city called Amdur. His name was Reb Chaim, the Rebbe's name was Reb Chaim, and the Chassidim called him Reb Chaikel Amdurer. Chaikel is a Yiddish nickname for Chaim. Chaikel Amdurer. A tremendous tzaddik. A tremendous Rebbe, and he had great Chassidim. So he told Alter Rebbe, next to me in shul, davens a chassid of Reb Chaikel Amdurer. He said, and he comes to shul every day, and he davens with a passion and a bren and a fire and an enthusiasm. And the chassid says, the Chabad chassid tells Alter Rebbe, this other guy davens, he's bullshit. He's on fire. His neshama is burning with Ava V'yira. And me, he says, to Alter Rebbe, I'm a Chabad chassid. I'm a chassid of yours. He says, I come to shul every day, and I start with the hisbonenus and with the learning and with the meditation and the working of myself and the dreya hin and dreya her. And some days I'm a little bit more, and some days into it, some days a little bit less into it. I struggle. He tells Alter Rebbe, I'm struggling, and this guy next to me, in Yiddish, to say someone is on fire, the word is Brent. You know what it means, Brent? He's burning, he's on fire, in a positive sense, of course. He tells Alter Rebbe, I'm struggling on Brent, and he's on fire. And the Alter Rebbe said in his famous niggin, the way the Alter Rebbe would speak, the Alter Rebbe said, Brent, he's burning. Chaikel Brent in him. His Rebbe is burning in him. When Mirvil and we want, the Alter Rebbe said, as Allein Brenner, that you should burn on your own. That's the story. We Chassidim repeat the story a lot because it encapsulates the shit of the Alter Rebbe, which is that the Alter Rebbe wanted not that a chassid should rely on his Rebbe and on his tzaddik to carry him, but the chassid, in a sense, should do the avoid himself and stand on his own 2 feet. Why am I saying this? What's the story with the Beinoni? Until we learn Tanya, the Beinoni has a problem. He has a problem. He wasn't born with a lofty enough neshama, or with a sensitive enough neshama, or with a powerful enough neshama, to get rid of his nefesh habamis, ein mol for alamol, the stupid, petty, egotistical schmutz, the garbage, the temptations, the arrogance, the kinna, the jealousy, the schmutz, the stuff. It has no value, seemingly, until you learn Tanya. He wasn't born with the courage, with the ability to get rid of it. He wasn't. So he can control it, he can contain it, but he can't get rid of it. Without Chassidus Chabad, you got no problem. Connect yourself to the tzaddik, right? Hook your train up to the locomotive, and it'll carry you at Shmei Hashemayim, no problem. A Rebbe is a tzaddik gomor. A Rebbe is an Oved Elokim. A Rebbe's got no nefesh habamis. Hook yourself up to him and let yourself be carried away. Let yourself dissolve into the infinity. No problem. Alter Rebbe said no. You have to stand on your own 2 feet. You got to do the avodah, what we call b'koyach atzmai, because it has to be b'pnimius, with all the explanations that we've all heard and repeated many times. And if you're going to ask me, says the Alter Rebbe, but if I don't hook myself up to the locomotive of some fantastic tzaddik, if you're going to say to me, but then I'm stuck here in this battle, and I feel like I can never win it, I'm going to tell you, says the Alter Rebbe, that you're right. You may be stuck in this battle, but I don't want to be stuck in this battle. I want to win. Alter Rebbe says, but who says that's the right definition of winning? Maybe our head's in the wrong place. I sometimes have the opportunity to study with young men before they get married in something called chosen classes. And in one form or another, almost all of them will say to me, I hope I never fight with my wife. I hope we can develop communication skills and techniques that are effective enough that we never fight. And I say to them, Chas v'shalom. Chas v'shalom. I hope you do fight. But I hope you reframe completely your understanding of what it means to fight. I want to rewire you. What do you mean? Two human beings who are in that type of a relationship are going to come at things from two very different perspectives. You want to have a relationship that is qualitative, that is deep? Learn to fight. Learn to put your kishkish into it. But learn that as you do, you're not against each other. You're not banging heads in opposition. God forbid. You're developing a relationship. They look at me a little funny because they don't know what I'm talking about. It's all right. They usually grow up sooner or later. But the depth of it is that when a person is naive, they think to themselves, "What's a good marriage?" We'll agree with each other all the time. We'll see things from the same perspective. We'll. That's not called marriage. I mean, again, some people take this out of proportion, and I bless all husbands and wives with shalom bayis, l'richas yamim v'shalom tovos. But it doesn't mean that two people are the same. First of all, there's no such thing. And second of all, even if there is, that's not a relationship. It means two people are free to be themselves and at the same time respect and trust each other so deeply that as they do, there is complete safety and vulnerability and space. And when they look back at their marriage, after they've been married for a while, they'll look back at those moments and go, wow, those were profound moments of closeness between us. And the Alter Rebbe is painting here a picture of a Beinoni. And the Alter Rebbe wants us to understand this, that develops this type of a profound, intimate relationship with our neshamas, with the Eibishter. Not just we're not afraid of the struggle. Not just we're not discouraged by it. Not just we believe in ourselves that we can win. But in the end, there is a victory, there's a quality here that is way beyond what we could have ever perceived when we originally set out and said, one day I'm going to be perfect. Perfection is dead. Perfection is death. Life is constant growth. Have a wonderful week.